Good morning. I've been asked by several people, particularly on YouTube, if I would update the circumstances following the earthquake. And of course, I'm happy to do so. And I would say at the outset that that has to be seen in context with everything else that has happened over the last 3 or 4 years when it comes to the refuge here. Now, I'm going to repeat again that the refuge here that now has over 260 equines is the only facility in Morocco that has equines in such numbers. And we're geared up for those numbers in terms of our infrastructure, our stabling, our clinic facilities, etc. That isn't to say that there aren't other charities who have donkeys that they've rescued. And primarily the ones that I spring to mind and we would support are Sarah in Agadir and SFT, the very large refuge in Tangier, who concentrate mainly on dogs and the elimination of rabies. Now, both those sanctuaries do have some donkeys, and I have very good relationships with both of them. And they both know if an animal is in dire need or they want special care, they will come here to us at Jargier. And just recently, I've taken several with the assistance of Sarah in Agadir from the public pound in Agadir. We've done that for quite a while and they've all done very well. We've also historically taken horses from the abattoir in Kenitra and they have all survived and done well. Now, I mention that because you may say, why has this happened? And we have to go back to the days of the pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we only had 60 equines. Post-pandemic, we had over 200 because animals were being abandoned and a lot of horses suffered appalling starvation. The other thing that happened is people who had mules suddenly found they could buy a horse very cheaply, so abandoned their mules and bought a horse. And of course, a horse is not as strong as a mule, and they suffered very badly dragging carts around the cities. There was then a rule implemented for local authorities that such animals must be confiscated and taken off the streets of the cities, which is why so many are ending up in slaughterhouses. So I give you that information as a little bit of background. Of course, on top of that, we had the earthquake, which was terrifying. And the consequences for us were that we immediately rescued several equines who were dug out of rubble. Some very sadly passed away and others are still with us and doing very well. So I see no signs in the future of things changing particularly. We were fortunate that during the earthquake, I was approached by a couple of international charities who are not permitted to come into Morocco, but they offered grants. And one gave me a grant of 1,600, I think, and another a grant of about £75. Now, bear in mind that to run the refuge with the number of animals we have and the staff that are absolutely necessary for the care of these animals, the food and the medical costs, it costs £5,000 a week to run Jargier. I will not, I emphasize, ever close the gates and say, no, we are full, take that animal away. Because the people who have supported us and helped us grow would not tolerate that behavior. We have to find a way of dealing with it. We gave consideration to maybe supporting other places in Morocco who would like to do the work we do, but the reality is they don't exist. I think for these reasons, and I'm repeating this, we own our land. we were able, because of the position Charles and I found ourselves in, to invest in the first instance so that we have a very good infrastructure. And do remember that looking after equines in this number is not just popping them all into a field and putting a shack up. If they come to us injured or sick, they need proper stabling. The stallions all have to have individual stables. The amount of water we use per head is possibly seen as quite large, but we have to keep infection at bay. And of course, we do need electricity in the stable blocks. And all this is a huge investment. And it's very unlikely that many people would be prepared to make an investment of that order to do the work that we do at the moment. So we have to look at expanding. We are surrounded by land, so buying land would not be difficult if we could raise the money. We would like in the first instance to buy land between ourselves and the main road so people could come straight in off the main road, and maybe those who didn't want to visit donkeys, we could have a little coffee shop near to the gate, and that would be an additional income to help the donkeys. We don't ever want to become commercial. We don't want to be here just to attract tourists. We are here, firstly, to save the animals that we're in a position to save, to give them the finest treatment we can, and hopefully by our actions to help improve, and I hate using the word educate, but alter the attitude of the younger generation coming up to the welfare of animals. And that is a very important primary purpose. We have relied on private donations and what Charles and I have been able to invest. But this year we are going to look forward to maybe applying for grants, which we hope would assist in the long term. And I'll talk to you more about that later. It needs to be borne in mind in terms of the I'm sorry, my telephone's just going, so I'm trying to do two things at once. In terms of the earthquake itself, there are now lots of agencies up in the mountains assisting. Our primary focus must now be here to keep this going for the animals that are really going to need it. We saw at the beginning of the earthquake a lot of people come forward and, they were setting up GoFundMes all over the place. Huge growth in GoFundMes. We didn't do that. We told people that if they continue to donate, that would be used also for the effects of the earthquake. And I think, sad to say, there were maybe some charities who were anxious for extra money because they were in debt. And I can say to you quite openly and honestly, we are not in debt. We have managed our refuge very well. So any additional monies that came in did go for the welfare of the rescued animals and for the building of new stables. There is some more I'd like to say to you, but I'm not in a position to do so yet. I did mention that we took animals from the slaughterhouse in Kenitra. I have heard this week that somebody else has done the same and trying to raise money on the back of that. If you come across an alternative organisation that is taking horses from the abattoir, do look what their facilities are and what they have to offer. If I discovered that improper or unlawful conduct had taken place, of course I would deal with it through the appropriate channels and be very open with you. I'm sorry the update is so long, we're nearly up to 10 minutes, but I'm going to do another video later of the boys who are treating the animals that we have in already. So bye for now and thank you.